Welcome to the Daily Devo. My name is Grant, and today we're talking about how life isn't always in our control. When I was 20 years old, I had created this elaborate plan to propose to my now wife, Alex, which I already gave away the ending. She said yes, but it didn't really go the way I thought it was going to. So at the time leading up to our engagement, I was working in Illinois and she was living in Arizona finishing up her education at Grand Canyon University. And so this is what I had decided to do. She was so afraid and so nervous to move to a brand new place in a small town that I decided to help her meet everyone in the process of proposing. So this is what I did. I created a 100-day countdown video. Now, I'm not good at making videos. I don't know how to edit videos. But I still found a way to kind of put it all together in iMovie. But on top of that, I also wrote journal entries for each individual person explaining who they are, who they've been to me, and kind of the role they play in this brand new community she would be moving to. So what that would look like is, say I had a friend that worked at a coffee shop. I would walk up to that friend and record a video of them saying, "Will you?" with a question mark at the very end. And then there'd be a corresponding journal entry. And then as the video would play underneath each person's name, there would be what day of the countdown it would be. And that would lead all the way up to the day of the proposal, where the very last video would be me saying, "Will you?" And then she would turn around and I would be there on one knee proposing to the girl of my dreams. Now, for the most part, it worked. From day 100 all the way down to day of proposal, I had a person for each video. And there was a huge variety. And towards the end, I started just asking people. Like the Southwest stewardesses ended up being the day 2 before. I got a bunch of random people to kind of do it at some point. And it wasn't really going the way that I'd hoped. And then also, doing a daily journal entry of 200 plus words is a lot of work. So I ended up writing her a small novel, telling her about my town and telling her about all these people. Well, I finally land. I've already planned out the time that I'm going to meet her at her house. Her family's working with me and we're coordinating it. But when the other person isn't aware of what's supposed to be happening, it can get a little crazy. So for example, she made it really clear to me that her nails needed to be done. Apparently, her nails weren't done, and so her family panicked and said, "You need to get your nails done," but they didn't want her to know that I was coming into town, so there was some weird coordination that happened there. Someone's car had issues, and so that made it even more difficult to get her out of the house. My plane landed late. The rental car that I had booked, they wouldn't book to me because I wasn't 25, and that caused a whole bunch of issues. My father-in-law had to go to a meeting, and so he wasn't able to pick me up. I mean, everything started kind of crumbling and falling apart. And eventually, I find myself at my in-laws' house, my future in-laws' house. I find myself waiting in the guest room, and I can hear in the living room the video playing of every single person saying, "Will you?" leading up to me saying, "Will you?" And I walk out, and in my mind, I have a beautiful, elegant speech prepared in which I'm going to talk about how much I love her and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with her, and I couldn't imagine a future without her planned in my head. And in the video that you can later see, I won't be sharing this with you, but I've seen it. I get down on one knee, I go, "Eeh!" And then she looks at me and she goes, "Rrr!" And now we're married. So I believe she said yes. At least on the day of wedding, she said, "I do." But here's my main takeaway from a lot of that. The best laid plans, they can still fail. And when it comes to you and I and planning our lives, we've had some incredible plans laid out. At one point, you might have had a dream college or a dream school. At one point, you had a dream job or a dream occupation. At one point, you met the person of your dreams and maybe it didn't work out. Or maybe you thought this is what it was going to be like to raise children. This is what it's going to be like when I'm getting ready for retirement. This is what it's going to be like. As my dad once said to me, he said, "Son, no one ever walks down the aisle planning to get divorced." And in the same way, you've been dealt a hand you never imagined that you would be dealing with if you could go back in time and lay out what your life would look like. During this Devo series, we've been looking at the life of Job, a man who truly loved the Lord and has now faced a ton of hardship. And towards the end of all this hardship, he's gone to God and said, "God, why this and why that? And why is my whole life falling apart?" And then God he answers. And so we're going to be looking at Job 39, verses 26 through 30. Does the hawk take flight by your wisdom and spread his wings towards the south? Does the eagle soar at your command and build his nest on high? He dwells on a cliff and stays there at night. A rocky crag is his stronghold. From there he seeks out his food. His eyes detect it from afar. His young ones feast on blood. Where the slain are, there is he. We're reading this passage and God is saying to Job, Job, you're not the person who made it possible for the hawk to care for his family. You're not the one with the wisdom bestowed upon the world that it might all work in the order that it's meant to work. Job, you are just you and I am God. And here's the thing. My plan for my life isn't always God's plan for my life. I believe that God is the author and the creator of us. You and I, and the Bible is this beautiful love letter written to you and I to better understand how to live life God's way, because we believe that God's way is the best way. And in the same way, all the way from Illinois, I was trying to plan out the perfect day and the perfect way to propose. There was still this one person that had a whole bunch of decisions that they could make that would impact what I was really trying to do in her life. And while the outcome was the same, she had clearly said, yes, I'm going to marry this guy. Man, what I thought that was going to look like day of didn't really shake up the way I thought it was going to. You and I, we do not get to dictate to God what our life will look like. And for many of us, our anger or frustration with God is that it doesn't look the way we told God it was supposed to look. But when you and I, we begin to worship the way that God can bless our lives, instead of worshiping the God who provides the blessing, we end up really mixing up our relationship with God the Father. So my challenge today is this. In those areas of your life where things aren't working out the way that you thought they were going to, the areas of life where you think you know better than God, would you instead lay those at the feet of God and say, God, what is your plan? Amidst me trying to figure out how my plan is supposed to actually fall into your plan. Thank you for watching the Daily Devo.